Welcome everyone to Integrating FME with Python, tips, demos, and also best practices for powerful automation is what we'll be discussing today. I'm joined by both Ali and Crystal. I'll pass things over to Crystal to introduce herself.
Yeah, I'm Crystal. I'm a technical support specialist on the FME form team.
And I'm Ali. I'm also a technical support specialist on the FME4 team as well.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. If you do have any questions, please do drop those in the questions tab on the bottom right. And we'll have a slide that shows that pretty soon too as well. But yeah, just drop any questions that you might have in the questions tab, and we'll have live Q&A at the end, and we'll also be able to get to some during the webinar here. And if you are newer to Livestorm, if you have any audio or video issues during the webinar, just click that help button on the bottom left for 4 simple steps to take. You can share your emoji reactions with us during the webinar with that react button. We have a poll coming up really quick under the polls tab there. And the chat, keep letting us know where you're tuning in from and leave any comments during the webinar. And then questions, as I mentioned, any questions you might have, please do drop those in the questions tab. That'll help us keep things organized, and we'll be able to reply directly to any questions that way. You can also download the deck with the button on the top right there of the PDF. And to take us through our agenda here, we'll get started with an introduction to our topic today, FME with Python. And then we'll specifically talk about integrating Python with FME next. We have several demos within that, so excited to show you all today what Crystal and Ali have prepared. And then to follow that, we'll be getting into some tips and troubleshooting best practices. To follow, we'll go over a conclusion, some resources specific to Python as well to help you get started on next steps. And then we'll have some time remaining at the end for questions. All right, so at this point, I'll get our presenters to turn off their webcams just so we can save on some bandwidth for the remainder here. From there, I'll pass things on to Crystal for our introduction.
Yeah, so I'll get started here. When someone wants to learn a new programming language, they typically learn Python first. And there are a few reasons for this. Python is free and open source. There's a lot of documentation available, including some tutorials and even YouTube videos that are quite easy to follow. It's compatible with many GIS applications, and it's also cross-platform, so it can be used on any OS. But when Python is used on its own to develop data integration solutions, it can take a bit more time, be harder to manage, and it can have a slower development time. So there is a better way. Integrating Python and FME can extend functionality. So there are many reasons why you may want to use Python and FME. You can do things like perform some operations that FME Workbench doesn't support. You can leverage third-party modules and libraries. You can call or run a workspace outside of FME Workbench, so with an IDE. Or you can bring in ArcPy and other Python scripts and automate data tasks. So this is not an extensive list, but this is what we'll mainly be focusing on during our webinar today. So just to note here, before you go through all the work of creating a Python script, you do want to make sure that there isn't already a transformer that does the same thing. I've referenced here on this slide the FME transformers documentation, just for you to look through the various transformers that FME has. We offer flexible deployment options. So FME Form is the authoring environment where you build your data integration workflows. And automation can be provided in FME Flow, which is deployed on-premise or in your private cloud. We also offer FME Flow deployed on a fully hosted AWS cloud environment called FME Flow Hosted. So this will be our roadmap for what we'll be covering in the webinar today. So I'll start off by talking about the main ways of integrating Python. So this is through startup and shutdown scripts, scripted parameters, the Python caller and Python creator transformers. I'll do a demo on using ArcPy within FME. And then I'll also take a look at the AI assist feature. Ali will then take on tackling Python package installations and import FME objects into an external IDE. So I'll start off by talking about startup and shutdown scripts. So a startup script is executed before the translation process begins and after the log file has been opened. So this occurs once the mapping file has been fully parsed, including the execution of any scripted parameters, but before the readers start their processing. Startup script can be used to do things like check a database connection, scan the log for a particular message or condition. It can move data. It can also write out the translation statistics to a custom log, database table, or even email them to an admin. It can define global Python variables that can be accessed later on in the translation within a shutdown Python script. And it can also do a pre-translation check. So I have an example of that on the slide here. Just at the top is a fairly simple Python script that will raise an exception if the Python interpreter is not version 3.13 or higher. So the screenshot also shows how to start up a startup script. So it's on the Navigator tab here under Workspace Parameters and then Scripting. So that's just where the arrow is pointing in the screenshot. You can set up both the startup and shutdown scripts here, as well as view or change your Python compatibility. So just a quick note about Python compatibility. As of 2024.0, Python 3.7 has been deprecated, so you must use 3.8 or above. And then the screenshot below was taken after I attempted to run the workspace with Python version 3.12. So the translation failed here, and it explains why. And this was expected because the Python script was meant to raise that exception if the Python interpreter is not version 3.13 or higher. I've also referenced an article at the top that talks a bit more about startup scripts and gives you a few more examples. And now I'll go over shutdown scripts. So a shutdown script runs when all of the transformers, readers, writers, and the log file are closed in a successful translation. And then just a note on this, if the translation fails, the script will still execute, but may fail. So a shutdown script can be used to write to a translation history log. It can also access a number of global variables that FME creates. It can open an output data set with the default application or send an email if the translation fails. So just on the side, I have another screenshot here. At the top is an example of a shutdown script. So I've just marked that with a number 1. That will automatically open the data set with the default application once the workspace runs. So in this case, it was a CSV file that opened automatically in the default application, just number 2 at the bottom there. And just a tip here, we recommend that the shutdown script not use any modules from the FME objects Python API. This is because during shutdown, the resources needed by FME objects are no longer available, resulting in unpredictable API call results. I've also referenced another tutorial here about shutdown scripts with a few more examples just at the top there. So next I'll talk about scripted parameters. So scripted parameters are executed before both Python startup scripts and the translation. They are very useful for setting up a parameter in FME based on values derived or calculated from other parameters. And you can also give an output a unique name as shown in the screenshot. This is just an example here that uses a scripted parameter that appends the date and time to the output dataset name, giving that output a unique name. So now I'll go over the Python caller and Python creator transformers. So the Python caller and Python creator transformers allow you to make changes to features or groups of features using a Python script. Yeah, again, before using these transformers, you just want to make sure that there isn't already an FME transformer available that can accomplish the task that you want to perform. And then just a tip here, first you want to import all essential modules. So just an example of this, if you're using ArcPy, you want to make sure you import that ArcPy module. And then remember to change the class to process feature to the class name in the script. So that's number 2 in the screenshot, just at the top there. And then also remember to expose the attribute you created in the script. So this is number 3, just at the bottom. I will be going over a demo on this here shortly, just how to use ArcPy in FME with the Python caller transformer. So why would you use ArcPy in FME? So integrating a Python script that utilizes Esri's ArcPy module into your workspace can enhance the functionality of Workbench. You can also export Python scripts from an existing model builder workspace in ArcPro and import that into FME. For the demo, what I'll be doing is I'm going to use ArcPy in that Python caller transformer to run the Kriging spatial analyst tool. So this may not be as straightforward to do with FME and may take many steps to accomplish that result. So I'm going to use the ArcPy script in the Python caller to use that Kriging tool within FME. And then once you have that ArcPy script and FME workspace, it can be used again for multiple data sets. So yeah, let's just get into the demo now. So I want to show the data that's used in this demo first. The first thing being the BC boundary. This was taken from Statistics Canada. Next is the temperature values that were from the BC data catalog. So the date and time for these temperature values is October 1st at 5 p.m. So this would have been during trick-or-treating time. So we're going to use the Kriging spatial analyst tool to interpolate a raster surface from temperature points. The final output will be a temperature map showing what the temperature was like during trick-or-treating this year in the province of British Columbia. The first thing we want to do is make sure that the Python compatibility is set to Esri ArcGIS. You also want to make sure that you have a valid ArcGIS license on your machine. And next, we're going to open the Python caller here, and then just take a look at this script. So you want to copy the ArcPy script and put it in the input method. You want to also make sure that you import the ArcPy module. And then the class to process feature should also be set to your class name. So in this case, the class name is Kriging. So you just want to make sure that's set. And then lastly, you want to remember to expose the attribute you created. So in this case, it would be output raster. You just want to make sure that's exposed there at the bottom. So now we can select OK and then run this transformer. This may take a few seconds to run here. So now that is finished, we're going to use a feature reader to read in the raster data set that was created. So So you want to set the format to file geodatabase raster dataset and then select the dataset there. And then finally, for feature types to read, you want to select the name you saved it as in the Python caller and then click OK. So we're just going to run that here. So once we read that in, we get the raster image that was created by that ArcPy script. And then the last thing I've done here was just set up a few raster transformers to create different colors associated with those temperature values. So we want to run the rest of the workspace just to show the final result here. So yeah, anywhere starting in the purple areas was roughly below 3 degrees Celsius, which is about 37 degrees Fahrenheit. Once you start getting into the darker purples, the temperature was around -5 degrees Celsius, so that's about 23 degrees Fahrenheit. So the kids who were trick-or-treating here most likely needed a winter coat over their Halloween costumes. So the regions along the coast and then towards the south saw warmer temperatures, with the highest at just over 10 degrees Celsius, which equals about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, it was a little bit cold across the province for us this year for Halloween, but those of us in the southern coastal regions experienced more mild weather. So yeah, that concludes the demo here. And then key takeaway from the demo was that I used the Python caller transformer to run the Kriging spatial analyst tool. Utilizing ArcPy within FME can be beneficial for running geoprocessing tools within a larger workflow. So a couple of tips just to make sure, as I mentioned in the video as well, you want to make sure that the Python compatibility parameter is set to the interpreter installed by ArcGIS. And then you also want to remember to change this back when you aren't working with ArcPy. And then lastly, just make sure that you have a valid ArcGIS license on the same machine. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is the AI Assist. So the AI Assist feature was added to FME in 2023. This can be helpful if you're just getting started with Python. So the AI Assist can generate code. In this example, the generated code is in the all results box, and I've just labeled this as 2 in the screenshot. It can refine existing code. It can also explain code. So here you can see the explanation at the bottom, just number 3 there. And the explanation can be helpful for troubleshooting. So even if you put the error you're getting into the Python description box, it will explain where this issue might be. So this would be a great starting point if you're stuck. And finally, it can add comments. So you can see here in the all results box, which is number 2, the AI Assist also added comments in there. So a tip for using the AI Assist is to look at the help documentation, specifically the generating Python section. This can really help guide you in the right direction when generating those prompts. And then one thing to watch out for is that while the AI Assist can be a really great starting point and it can be a great tool for troubleshooting, it is AI. So not all of the results will be the most accurate or efficient way of doing things. Some of the results it gives you might even prevent your script from running. So you just want to make sure that you review the output before using it in your script. And then next, Ali will talk about installing Python packages.
Thanks, Crystal. Yeah, so for this section, we'll be discussing about installing Python packages. So there may be times where you need basically this section is going to talk about third-party packages, as you will see in the demos. There may be times where the standard Python library that comes with FME doesn't have what you're looking for. That's what we'll be doing in this demo coming up. Here you can see with 2021 plus, that'll make sense as I get to the second bullet point. You usually install a Python package using FME, the executable for FME, and then Python a little bit different than the regular pip install. It's usually py or pi, and then install and then the package name there. And then the Mac and Linux equivalent is below that. And then not many people, I don't think, use FME, or we know that they don't use FME 2020.1. Before that and up to that version, what you had to do is install Python packages using the target. You had to use the target command to install into a specific place. So the one above here with 2020.1 plus or above, it will automatically install to the interpreter location, which on Windows is located in Documents, Plugins, Python, and then the Python interpreter version. Or for Mac, it'd be under Library FME 2024. And then Linux is similar as well. So for Python modules, once you bring a package or using a package from FME, which is the Python standard library, you can use the FME standard library as it says in the first point. So you can do OS, pathlib, CSV, and provided a link there, you can check out the standard library and see what you can import there, or the modules that you can import. Third-party modules must be installed via package and imported. We're going to use pip here. You can also install the package via the Python index website, and you can put it into the documents, or depending on the OS that you have there, or you can use pip, as we're going to show you in the demo shortly here. And then to upload a module to Flow, it's engine, plugins, and then Python. So that will make a little more sense once we get into the demo. All right. So the goal here is, before getting into this, so we're going to use PyFiglet, which is a small package that takes ASCII text and renders it in ASCII art fonts, just to give an idea of what you can do with third-party packages. It can be a little bit confusing where packages reside, but you don't have to worry if you're using 2020.1 and above. It does that automatically. And then we're going to use pip here instead of extract or downloading a package and putting it into the interpreter folder. And pip is just a package manager that we ship with FME, but it's a little bit different than the official pip package manager that you usually use. And then we'll have packages installed in the directories. So let me get into the demo here. So here we've ahead of time installed the PyFiglet package by using, well, this command here, we're directly using the exe, using the full path to use that FME exe. I forgot to mention before. You have to go into that folder. So yeah, we're installing PyFiglet. It's been installed, and you can see here it's been installed in the default location. Now going into FME form, there's a little program with a creator and Python caller, but before getting into that, just want to make sure, as Crystal previously mentioned as well, make sure your Python compatibility is set into that Python range. So if you're using we're using 3.12 here, 3.11 is totally fine. It doesn't matter if there's a major mismatch there, as long as it is in that range. So we're using a creator, going into the Python caller here, very similar to what Crystal has shown previously. We're importing PyFiglet, and then we're using its function to display the ASCII art in the banner font, and we'll print it to the translation log. So we'll run that. Once that's run, we'll scroll up here in our translation log, and you can see it's been printed, as you can see there. All right, we'll save that, and now we'll publish it to FME Flow. We've made a folder up there ahead of time, and then we'll keep the default name to Python packages, or the workspace, and we'll just use the job submitter here. So we'll publish that. We'll check in our translation log if it was successful. The publish was successful, which it was. And we'll go to FME Flow and try to run the workspace there. So we select Py packages, which we put our workspace in, and we use the job submitter. And then once we run this, it will fail at first, as you'll see. And that's because you have to import those packages that or the package or packages, depending on how many you've installed, into FME Flow, as it doesn't get published with your workspace. So as you can see, there's no module found, no module named PyFiglet. So to fix this, we'll go to Resources, and Engine, Plugins, Python, and then the Python interpreter that has been set. So Python 3.12. So we'll put our package that we've installed with pip inside this folder. That's been successful there. And then once we go back, and we can see that it has the py and pyc files. And then once we run this workspace again, you'll see that it's successful, and FME Flow tries its best to display that ASCII art. As you'll see here, there we go. And yeah, that's simply how that's a relatively simple example of how you install Python packages and put into Flow and run it in Form. So some of the key takeaways here are to make sure to place packages in the right Python version directory, but you don't have to worry about that. FME does it automatically in the right location. And then just to make sure your compatibility setting is correct. And the reason why is on the Flow side, the interpreter does not guarantee that FME engines will use the interpreter for all workspaces. So instead, it uses the Python compatibility. So make sure your Python package is within that range. So if you're using Python 3.12, make sure it's either 3.12 plus or anything earlier that has that range. All right, so the next demo, or in the next section and demo that we'll be going through, is importing FME objects into an external integration development environment. So here we'll be using PyCharm. So a little bit about PyCharm is a dedicated IDE providing a wide range of tools. And yeah, it's to run Python scripts usually. So before getting into the demo here, to make sure that you add an interpreter that is not FME, so it won't work if you use FME's system interpreter directly. So you'll have to install Python interpreter from the official website, and then it would work with PyCharm. It'll make more sense once we get into the demo. And the Python interpreter version must be one that is supported. So if you're using, for example, the FME 2024.1 or 0.0, or let's say 0.1, you'll have to install Python 3.12 for it to work. And then the bit version must also match. So mostly we use 64-bit, but if you use 32-bit, but usually it comes with it, so you don't have to worry. You just have to set it to 32-bit. All right, so talking about the demo here. So we're going to import the FME objects module into PyCharm. It can be a little bit cumbersome to set up, but don't worry, once you see this demo, it'll be easy to follow. We'll basically go into local and project interpreter settings to set that up, and we'll be able to run workspaces with the FME objects module in PyCharm. So get into the demo here. So we've opened PyCharm ahead of time. We're using 2024.2.4 here. We're going to keep this as default Python project that comes with it, and then you set your location there. You'll be using a Python virtual environment, but yeah, you can make sure that it's set correctly, but it's set it automatically. So, but it will find it. If you have multiple versions, make sure to set it there. So we've created the project. We're going to go into settings, and just under project name, under Python interpreter, we're going to go under Python interpreter and go to show all. This was previously testing it, so I'll get rid of that. We're going to go into interpreter paths, which is that branch there, and we're going to select the path. So you want 3 paths. So you want the FME installation. So here we're using 2024.1, and then you want Python, the Python folder within it. And then also you want the Python interpreter version within that Python folder, which we're using 3.12 here. So once those are set, press OK. We'll apply that and close out by pressing OK for settings. Once that's set, we'll create a Python script, which will be workspace run our example. So we'll be running an FME workspace from PyCharm. So once that's set, there's two things that you can do. There's more information in the article itself. There's two ways of doing it. So the first way is going into current file, edit configurations, and then adding an environment variable there. But we'll do it the second way, which is we're going to directly put it in the script itself. So let me copy the code from what I made previously and paste it here. As you can see, and that's the second way of doing it. So we don't need that, as we set it in the first step that we've took, which was in settings. And then, we're setting it to os.environment, FME home, and then the installation location. So we're using Bootstrap, FME objects. Bootstrap will elaborate more on later. So we're setting our full path here, the parameters. So we're printing using a Excel file and then printing it out as a CSV. And then we're using a try catch. It's print a measure if the workspace runs successfully. If not, it will throw an error and then we'll stop the process so it doesn't run in the background. So we'll run that. We saw that it runs successfully. And you can see here, this is what we used. So the same thing we referenced there, which is public arts. And then we outputted it. So we'll open that and you can see that, we didn't really go into the data, but we do have on the Academy, you can see the data there, and it basically converted from Excel format to CSV format. And that pretty much concludes the demo. So some key takeaways here is to make sure to add FME home as an environment variable with those two ways. There's more information on our article that is linked into the chat, or we can provide later. And you want to test the import. So for example, in the demo that we've shown you, you can test it on one of the FME objects class modules and then test it there to see if it's read in properly. And then the final point I want to make with Bootstrap, which I told you guys I was going to elaborate on later, is due to changes in Python 3.8 to stop looking through the path variable on Windows. So it's basically a Windows issue here. The FME Bootstrap library was created to help resolve load time dependencies. It basically modifies the environment so FME objects load time dependencies can be found by the interpreter. Okay, so some tips and troubleshooting here. So the first point here is to confirm that modules are imported into their scripts, as myself and Crystal have shown you. And and then installing third-party packages or Python version directories. And we've shown you that 2020.1 and above does that automatically, so you don't have to worry. And then those are the default Python interpreter locations that FME installs packages to. And then thirdly is the Python exception module not found error. This can be caused by a system path variable, Python interpreter, or multiple Python versions conflicting, and we have more information on that article there. All right, so some tips for Python troubleshooting: check version compatibility and check interpreter for Python versioning, which we pretty much covered in both of our, Crystal mostly covered in her demo, and then I briefly touched upon it in my demo. And ensure system path variables are correct, just like we discussed in the previous slide. And a workspace authored on one machine may not work on another machine if they depend on custom Python libraries. So make sure to have those packages and the interpreter version is matching there. So some common HTTP SSL issues, just want to bring this up briefly. On occasion, you may encounter TLS or SSL issues if you're custom Python interacting with web services or databases that are using self-signed certificates or certificates issued by a private certificate authority. So just make sure to set those. And if you are using a self-signed or private CA or certificate authority certificates, they need to be manually added to CA cert.pem or the system trust store. And then you just have to watch out for certificate expiry as well. And then the last tip here is going from form to flow. This is just the two common issues you may encounter when publishing your Python packages to flow is the no module named, like example, what we saw with PyFiglet. It can be caused by the extraction process not completing successfully in resources engine. So either you got to re-import it or just be a little patient there. And there's more information at that link there. And then the second one, when a job is submitted on FME Flow via the FME Flow job submitter with submit jobs, this can be another issue here, which we've linked more information with that article. So to conclude, Python is great to add logic that's not available, but just make sure that there is the logic with the transformers that we pretty much with our transformers cover most things. And then we also have transformers on the community that cover other use case scenarios. So just make sure that there's not logic already. And just going over what we've covered in the webinar today is additional functionality to workspaces. So what Crystal went over, which is startup scripts, shutdown scripts, scripted parameters, etc. And installing packages not shipped with FME via down, which we've done, and then running scripts outside of FME with an IDE. And it can work with a program of your choice as well, following those steps. And yeah, we've been doing this for a while. So we've done this for over 30 years now. We serve over 128 countries with our customers. We have customers in over 128 countries. We have 29,000 plus community members with over 25,000 organizations worldwide. And yeah, we're pretty established. And I'll pass it over to Elizabeth for resources.
Awesome. Thank you, Ali. Okay, so just getting into some resources here. We do have a few specific to Python to help you get started as next steps after this webinar. So as I mentioned, you can download the deck and then you can access these links directly at the risk of not over spamming the chat here with links. So yeah, a few there that we recommend to get started with. Python and FME Basics, Python Troubleshooting, and AI Assist in FME Frequently Asked Questions. We are all about free resources here at SAFE. We offer free instructor-led training over at our FME Academy. So please do check that out, as well as our knowledge base. And lots of upcoming and on-demand webinars available too. So safe.com/webinars. Check out what we have coming up there. And our podcasts, we do have audio-based learning available through EM360 here. Feel free to take a look. Maybe that can be, your next podcast on the way to or from work. In terms of next steps to take, please do contact us. We would love to help you get started or find solutions to your data integration challenges there. I will also publish a notification so that if you do wish to reach out, you can just click that button for an easy access way to do that. And experience the FME Accelerator. It's a great 90-minute free of charge course. I personally took it and found it very helpful for getting started learning the basics of FME. Claim your community badge. If you are a member of our FME community, you can claim this badge as a thank you for joining us today. And I've dropped that in the chat there now. If you aren't a member of the community, we encourage you to take a look through there. That's a great place to network with other users alike and get solutions.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. My name is Moyen, and now I'll be taking us through the Q&A portion of the webinar. So at this time, I'll just ask our presenters to join me on stage. Hey. Awesome. I think we did have quite a few questions come in the questions tab. So Debbie, Ali, and Crystal, if there's any that you wanted to highlight or one that we couldn't get to during the webinar, please feel free to take those on now.
there was a question that isn't directly related to Python, but it is which model does AI Assist use? AI Assist is one of our new tools introduced to help users, and it uses ChatGPT. I believe 4 point something. And I think the second part of that question is, can we specify ourselves? I believe that functionality was able to. We were able to do it, but now I think it has been removed. So not possible in, I believe, 2025.
And then I can try to answer this to the best of my knowledge. Feel free to jump in, guys. Do you recommend pip for packet manager? I mean, we do support it. The pip manager does come shipped with the FME, is that right, Debbie? So, is it possible to use poetry that we haven't tested? So yeah, I'm not sure if you could try, but we haven't done it at our end, or on our end.
Okay, and another good question. It's already been answered, but I find that a lot of users get confused between this, so I'll answer it live. Can you explain the difference between the Python compatibility in the workspace parameters and the setting and FME options translation Python interpreter? So basically, the FME options setting is for it's for the whole application. It changes the Python compatibility parameters default value for any new workspaces. It does not affect existing workspaces, so you would still need to go to the navigator, workspace parameters, Python compatibility setting parameter to change it for any existing workspaces that you already have saved.
I do see that there's another question here about how to use an IDE to edit the Python caller code. Would anyone have any ideas on the answer to this one?
I think for that question, I mean, we can use Python as an external ID for this, but to directly edit the Python color code, I'm not sure. For now, it's not possible. So, but something we can consider.
We have a question about developing Python caller classes and PyCharm and an external IDE. So we do have an article about using PyCharm and FME. I think I saw it in the chat earlier. I believe Ali had already shared that link. Maybe Ali can share it again. And it just goes through how to set up PyCharm to use FME objects.
Yep, it should be in the chat. I can post it again here.
Yes, thank you, Ali.
So it's in the chat now.
And we have another question about using PyCharm. No, you don't have to use the Python that's installed with FME to install a Python module. So that's what the fme.exe python-m pip install command is for. Basically, as long as the library is already installed in the Python environment, we should be able to use it in Workbench.
Awesome. I think we answered all of the questions that have come in through the question tab. So we can close out the webinar now, but we will leave the webinar running for another 5 minutes so our attendees can save out any links we've chatted out or ask any last questions. And obviously, if we did not get to your question, we will be sure to follow up with you after the webinar. Yeah, and if everyone has a moment to fill out our webinar survey, that would be awesome. We appreciate any feedback we can get. Yeah. Oh, I think we just have one last question from Timothy, if anyone is able to take that one on.
Yep. So for VS Code, I think Steve's in. Yeah. So
Okay, awesome. We
got some
people replying.
Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. Okay, yeah, I will leave the webinar running for a bit longer. So if anyone has last minute questions, please feel free to send those in. But I just wanted to thank everyone for attending today, and as well as our presenter team and Debbie helping us out with questions today. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.